You're missing the target, and so am I. It's human nature. We lack focus. Focus requires sacrifice. It requires dedicating ourselves to fewer things consistently to achieve greater progress. But our lack of focus isn't upsetting. It simply means that we have room to grow. Or rather, to grow, we need to make room. So we need to filter out everything that does not lead to our success. Everything? Yeah, everything. That is what true focus entails. Now, is true focus what most of us want? Maybe not. But most of us, if we pursue our goals at all, we settle somewhere in the middle, where we focus small parts of our lives to make tiny progress in small spurts over time. So what would it take to truly change the world? Utter, raw focus. A force of nature unleashed, supported by our environment. Every task, every habit, and action shaping us. Even our relaxation can serve as a benefit if properly applied to our lives. I learned to read when I was 5 years old, and I was addicted from the start. I learned out of a big reading book that we had, and reading Tom Swift sci-fi novels with my parents. And I was obsessed with the unknown horizons that sci-fi and mystery stories posed. And so I would read incessantly, and much of my time was spent finding ways to mix my reading with the rest of my life. And I loved climbing trees and exploring the orange groves behind our house, but there wasn't really anywhere convenient to put the books. So much so that after a couple branches got used as bookmarks and for forgotten books, I started to build a reputation for leaving books hanging in the trees. But my search for dopamine in those pages turned me into a speed reader. I subconsciously decided that it took too long to absorb the content of the stories that I was reading. And so I started to read differently. I would recognize patterns in sentences and reduce focus on the words that didn't communicate the message. I'd hold my books a certain way and read a certain way to increase my speed. I slowly sacrificed elements of the process until I could read much faster than people expected. I found out that our local library had a reading competition, and I read 300 books over the course of a summer. And I still suspect to this day that they secretly disqualified my entries because they thought that I lied to get them. And one of my recent forays into economics led me to Ray Dalio's The Changing World Order. And if you've been keeping up with your finance homework, you've probably read this book already. Ray Dalio focuses on the cycles of economics and how countries ascend and fall. He breaks down the stages of that process, and he isolates the principles behind the success or failure of nations. Now, since I'm a firm believer in the universality of principles, I began to take a look at his findings from a new perspective. I was like, what if I viewed the national principles from a personal perspective? So Ray Dalio provides 8 measures of the strength that a country is measured by. And I took these 8 measures and I started using them to analyze myself, or at least look at it from the individual level. If I focused on these elements, would they be valuable to me individually? 1, does education? Does having knowledge, skills, strong character, civility, and a good work ethic make for a more successful person? Yeah, I think that's fairly obvious. 2, competitiveness. The ability to exchange value even when peers are seeking to provide the same value. It's an edge, the ability to receive more value than you spent for the value you create. Yeah, I believe that applies on an individual level as well. 3, technology. On a societal scale, this refers to innovation, improved efficiency and effectiveness in industry, which allows societies to capture greater market share. Yeah, I believe that's beneficial as well. Economic output, the total value created. Does increasing the total value I put out benefit my long-term financial success? Yeah, I think that one stands alone. And then share of world trade. To personalize this, I view this as a larger share of value exchange within my community. Does increasing the frequency or share of my value exchanges with others in my community increase overall long-term financial success? Yes, again, the parallel is there. Military strength. I view this in terms of financial nodes, or nodes of value. Much like the military strength, that's more the security of the lifestyle. Do I have the means to protect my assets from being taken? Do I have assets that I can rely on if unexpected threats arise? And do these things improve my long-term financial strength? Yes. And that leads right into financial strength. That I view in terms of financial nodes or nodes of value, much like the financial centers that Ray Dalio speaks of, or the strong equity, currency, and credit markets. My sources of income or value creation or value capture are diverse and important. Are they? Without those elements, can you really consider your finances to be considered strong? I don't necessarily think so. You need stability, you need security in your finances. And so that leads to the final principle, a reserve currency. The last measure that Ray Dalio provides for a country's strength is a reserve currency. And what is a reserve currency but a token that represents trust with neighbors and your community? The greater the level of trust, the closer you are to a reserve currency. If even strangers and your enemies are willing to transact with your IOUs, you've attained reserve currency status. To attain those things, however, something is required. To attain knowledge, skills, character requires time and emotional dedication. To acquire competitive edge, you need to sacrifice what works well to try out something new. You need to seek out frontiers. To innovate, you need to sacrifice conventions and alter your perspective. And to acquire security of lifestyle, you have to sacrifice growth potential and many new opportunities. Focus requires sacrifice. It is a choice to say no to many things to achieve a few things. Focus does bring results, though. And the most focused parts of my life yielded the greatest results of my life. Focus is one of the hardest skills to build. So much so that we often applaud people for applying focus to many things at once, which, ironically, destroys our ability to focus. But if we sacrifice the right things and apply our focus to the right things, there is nothing on earth that can keep us from achieving our goals. I deeply believe that. What is the thing that would bring you the most value today if you focused on it? And what would you have to sacrifice to do that? Thanks again for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. On another note, I focused my portfolio a little bit more, moving into call options on nature's most beautiful element. I hope you guys are still preparing. Winter is coming. Make sure you're ready. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week.